The Infinity Will. I've waited a long time to do this video. Hopefully it'll come out okay. I may have to redo it in several parts, but I'm feeling pumped at the moment. And I feel like I can maybe at least begin to give this justice. So I believe that a people exists both as a spirit and as a body, or rather as a body and as a spirit. The body is very readily apparent. You have your blood and your genetics, and you pass that on to your children. And a people are a group who shares the same blood or similar blood. And they wish to help each other in part because they share that blood, and because their survival is collective. They are all distantly related to one another in a fashion far more than I mean, who cares from a biological standpoint of someone on the other side of the world? The people from your nation, the people from your ethnic group, most of them are probably like fifth cousins of yours. They're distantly related to you. Their blood is your blood. Maybe not as directly as your own children, but it is to a certain extent. But that's not all there is to a people. There's also a soul of it, a spiritual essence of a people that makes them what they are. That is their worldview. That is their way of seeing the world, of viewing creation. That is their heuristic for how they look out into the cosmos and how they perceive it. And in the West, that is what I like to call the Infinity Will. Now, the term comes from a number of different sources. I initially wanted to call it the Will of Fire, but I found out Naruto had it. And that doesn't come from Naruto, it comes from Zoroastrianism, where the great living fire constantly purifies and regenerates the world. The fire that comes from, in Zoroastrianism, the term for God with an uppercase G is Ahura Mazda. And Ahura Mazda has given us fire which purifies and improves the world and makes it better. But that was taken by Naruto. So then I read Spangler, and Spangler talks about the will to infinity, which is very similar. Will, once again, comes from, it did not come from Spangler for me, it came from Zoroastrianism, as will and free will is an essential part of that religion, and that's kind of one of the oldest forms of Indo-European religion. And to me, it is a precursor to Christianity. And this is a side note, but I do regard Zoroaster as a prophet personally, who gave part of the revelation that would eventually become Christianity. So, the Infinity Will comes from a number of sources, but most people probably assume it comes from Spangler, and it does in part. Spangler defined the core essence of Western man as the will towards infinity, the constant need for more. Now, more is often misunderstood, particularly by leftist clowns, to mean more stuff, more material goods. And they will attempt to pathologize the Infinity Will and portray it as a simple desire to invade countries, steal shit from people, and eat ourselves to death. To them, the Infinity Will is nothing more than getting bigger cars, eating more food, getting so fat you explode, and getting money that you'll never spend or need. That's not what the Infinity Will is. It's a corruption of it, but it's more than that. The Infinity Will is a desire for more. It is the animating fire within us that propels us always forward. Now, I know this sounds like progressivism, but it isn't. Progressivism is a corruption of the Infinity Will, but it has such effect on Western man because it is a corruption. It is not how a lot of traditional authors see it, as some sort of foreign entity that just showed up one day and corrupted who we are, and that if we only went back to some imagined path, we would not have this. No. Western man has always been marked by his optimism towards the future, his belief in individual free will, and in the strength and ability of one individual to change the course of history, and his optimism that things can be invented or things can be improved, that the future can be better. An expression I like to have with regards to the left is that the old world believed in the future and the new world disdains it. And we live in a world that has given up hope from the future. What we desire now is a bland world of gray, where no colors exist anymore, but everything is blended together into a single people that has no future, that has an infinite stretch of gray. And this is a corruption. This is not what it originally was. So the Infinity Will tells us that we need more, that we need to solve things, that if there is a problem, that there is an answer, There is a hope that there is an answer, but there's more than a hope. There is the will to make that answer a reality. Western man looked up at the moon and he said, "That's beautiful, but I believe that I can reach it. And not only that, I will do what it takes, even if it takes thousands of years to reach that orb in the sky." It's the man who looks at a dying child and says, "I will make the cure so that this will be fixed. This is a blight on the world. This is a product of original sin, and I must fix it." But it doesn't only apply to problems of a physical nature, it also applies to problems of the spirit. There is an innate need for purity, for goodness, to always become morally better. And this leads us into bad places. This is where leftism comes from a corruption of this. From a corruption of this by mixing this with pure emotionalism and leaving behind any kind of rational sense of reality, any sort of pragmatism, any sort of conception of the real world. But at the same time, this is a core aspect of Western man. We dream of something, and we have the will and the ability to make it a reality. We don't just dream of the stars and say some giant strewed them in the sky. We say, no, we're going to build a ship to go to the stars. We're going to build telescopes to observe the stars. And then once we conquer the stars, we will conquer what's next. And to me, that is in line with what the ultimate purpose of humanity is, and what the purpose of Christianity is. The ultimate purpose of Christianity is to infinitely become more like God. That is what theosis is. That is what deification is that from the moment we are born until Judgment Day and beyond, we as imperfect beings seek to become more like God, to become compassionate like God, to become wise like God, to become, yes, powerful like God. That is a natural drive within us, all as humans, but within Western man, it is the core of his identity. The Eastern man looks at the world and seeks balance. He seeks to balance the past and present. He looks towards the future with negativity, with cynicism, with a lack of hope and a lack of belief in it. Western man looks towards the future and sees opportunity. He believes that tomorrow is always another chance, is always another opportunity, and that maybe one day the opportunity will be good, especially if he has the will and the ability to try and make it. It's a complete refusal to accept the world as it is, but to see the world for how it can be. And more than that, it is ability to make it so. And that is the greatness of Western man. That unlike every other dreamer, people who have existed on Earth, he has that limitless ability to make it so. And I think I mentioned this in the movie Interstellar. I think that movie really embodies Western man. Because Earth is dying. There's nothing he can do about it. But at the same time, he's decided he's not going to die. Because he has the will to live, the will to exist, the will to grow. And so rather than expect it, he comes up with absurd dreams, absurd plans, going through wormholes to other galaxies. Even in a distant future, builds some sort of fourth-dimensional time travel machine to go back in time and save himself. Because that's what Western man does. That is why he's great. That is the essence of who he is. And that is my problem with a lot of the kind of radical traditionalists, is they view this as a bad thing. They view this as something to be eliminated, something to shut down, something to be removed from our character. But I say you can't remove it from our character. No more than you can remove iron from blood. Because it's who we are. Does it mean that it's not always a good thing? Yes. Does it mean it's led to a lot of the crap we've been? Yes, but it also is what took us to the moon. It's what created classical music. It's what built cathedrals, what wrote Shakespeare, what composed Ode to Joy. This will for the infinite. It is the essence of who we are. How you can be a traditionalist and reject the essence of who you are, I don't understand how you can do it. The infinity will is simply part of Western man. You can see it in everything we do. in every decision we make. And you can choose to try and make it serve good, to make it serve the natural order, to make it serve God's order, to make it something that enriches people, that provides a future of many colors, that enriches the world, but also ensures and is balanced against reality. Because dreamers always need pragmatists. They always need people to tell them what's possible, to limit their damage. Society does need a balance. But the answer isn't to destroy the infinity wheel. The answer isn't to lobotomize yourself. Because to be traditional is to embrace it. Because that is the traditions of the West. That is who we are as a people. And if you want to be a traditionalist, as I said, and reject who you are, then you aren't a traditionalist. Now, I'm not really advocating anything in particular with this, any particular policy. I'm trying to get at ideas. And I'm trying to get at a core idea and a problem I have with a lot of neo-reactionaries. Now, I agree that in a lot of senses, what modernity has wrought is horrendous, is horrific, is obscene. But in my line of thought, part of that is regaining the infinity will for good, is re-injecting pragmatism into it, re-injecting the possible into it, making it serve something better instead of the forces of evil, instead of hubris, to bring back a sense of wonder, to bring back real hope for the future, and to understand that to have a future of real hope and to have a world that's always interesting, we have to make sure that a world survives it. A world that's just more than a blended humanity of generic culture that has lost the drive to ever seek more. When I go to Toronto, when I look at that apathetic mixture of architectural styles, that decaying, decrepit buildings amidst so much wealth, to look at the way no one has any connection to one another, I see no spark of the infinity wheel there. I see a people whose soul has been taken from them and replaced with the blandness of multiculturalism. And we must reignite it. We must remove multiculturalism. We must build a future for our people. Because the infinity wheel does not just serve us, it serves all of mankind, in a sense. I'm not advocating multiculturalism or mass immigration, nothing like that, but when we invent stuff like antibiotics, like nuclear power, like cars, those things help everybody. And if you care about other people and you want a better future for them, then you will support the continued existence of my people, of Western man. And I mean that in a biological as well as a cultural sense. Because without Western man, we won't have any more of that, will we? We won't have any more of these great inventions, these timeless works of art, these dreams, these impossible dreams that we somehow achieve. That will fade away, and humanity will be left in eternal present tense. We'll be left with an eternal shade of gray. We'll be left in that hell for all time, if we are to vanish. And that is my appeal to you, to your sense of decency, to your sense of compassion. For it is no compassion what the left has done. It is not pure, it is not in accordance with a desire to do good and to make the world better that the infinity will necessitates what they have done. How they have broken down things like the family, how they have blended the nations together, how they have removed religion from our lives, how they've removed the things that make the world an exciting, beautiful, and wonderful place, and have sought to replace it all with their uniform shades of brown and gray. It's not compassion, it's evil. It's evil that corrupts both us and our civilization. And it's something that is our duty, not to tear out our souls, but to reclaim our soul. To turn the fire of the infinity will on our enemies. To burn away the viruses that are eating at the heart of our soul. And to stop them burning away the antibodies that are trying to heal it. That is what our purpose is on the right. To steer our people back towards the right course. To a proper course, towards a just course. In accordance with who we are. So I say to you, the past believed in the future. That a belief in the future and optimism is a core aspect of Western man. That, as I said, can no more be removed than can someone's lungs. For it is the engine that propels him forward. So I hope that I did justice to the thing that I perhaps love the most in this world, which is my people, which is Western civilization. And that's part of why I became a Catholic, was because Benedict took a name that implied that he, above all else in this world, loved the preservation of Western civilization. For he chose the name of the man who preserved Western civilization, who preserved classical civilization and all the greatness and grandeur of it, so that when we were ready to take it up again, it was right there. That is what Saint Benedict did. He preserved classical learning for it. And perhaps that is part of our goal, to ensure that no matter what happens in the future, some bit of the infinity will is left. Because even if there is but 100 of us left, our desire for more, our need for a better future, will allow us to rebuild. Perhaps that's optimistic thinking, but we once thought man would never fly. We once thought that things like the internet were science fiction. We once thought that we would never travel into space and go to the moon, but we achieved all of that through the infinity will, through the soul of the West. And I do believe, in my more optimistic moments, that infinity will see us through this crisis. We will be greatly diminished. We will have lost much of who we are materially. But so long as our spirit remains, there is always a future. And there is always the ability to make a better future. This is Argent Templar. God bless you. Signing out.